Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Saco School Board Committee meeting for October 23rd, Wednesday at 5:02 p.m. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to make note that we do have all members present with the exception of School Board Member Warnoff, School Board Member Roach, and School Board Member Gale at this time. School Board Member Gale usually is on his way from work, so he may be showing up in just a few moments. Okay, the first item under item 3 is the approval of the school board minutes. Is there a motion?
Madam Mayor?
School Board Member Truman?
I move we approve the school board meeting minutes dated October 9th, 2024.
Motion has been made by School Board Member Truman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by School Board Member Preble. Any discussion on the minutes? Okay, not seeing any. Roll call vote. School Board Member Preble?
Yes.
School Board Member Richards?
Yes.
School Board Member Truman?
Yes.
And School Board Member Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Okay, there are no adjustments to the agenda this evening. There are no correspondence. That now takes us to item 6, and that is public session. If there are any members of the public wishing to speak, please step forward to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes to address the school board. Okay, not seeing any members seeking recognition. Now takes us to item 7, and that is the superintendent's report. Superintendent Ray?
Good afternoon, everyone. A few items to report tonight. On Monday evening, we had a joint meeting with the City Council, and I've attached the memo where we covered some issues of school construction, enrollment as the major items, and then certainly the need within our community for students who are impoverished. Just knowing that the homelessness is kicking up, and as we head into winter time, some of the pieces we have done. But always a pleasure to meet with the council so we can discuss issues. Additionally, we also had Don Roth there that night to give an update of the combined facilities and how that's moving in a very nice direction. Still a big learning curve for everybody, but Don's a wonderful individual. And then also just very thankful that Mike Garrity's still around to help us out, still working some to provide some of that transitional support. Because Mike has a great deal of knowledge in his head and a lot of experience in the system, so he knows, he really knows the bones within our structures and the all of the pieces that have been done in the past. So thanks to Mike as well. This week is National School Bus Safety Week, and we personally thanked our drivers with a barbecue lunch yesterday. They play such a critical role in guaranteeing our students have safe transportation to school, and we're grateful for them and couldn't do it without them. So a big thank you to bus drivers. If you're watching it at home, this is a great week to thank your child's bus driver, because it is a tough job with all of the traffic, distracted drivers, and so we thank them. I want to congratulate Will Curtis, who's a member of our staff in transportation, who officially passed his bus driver's license test this month. And a big thank you to veteran driver Jess Doris for training him. That's another addition to our staff. We were able to pick up a couple of bus drivers in the last couple of weeks, but it still leaves us with like 7 openings. So if you know people, send them our way. We'd love to have them join our staff. Recently, you may have seen the passing of Larry Reinhardtson, who worked as a gifted and talented teacher at Saco Middle School and also had the role of vice president of the association for several years. I just want to thank the SEA and Saco Middle School for combined making a $1,000 donation to the Portland Public Library in the honor of our late colleague. A reminder that tonight, if we got out of here by 6 o'clock, you could go to Thornton Academy and see a screening of the documentary Screenagers, Under the Influence, which addresses vaping, drugs, and alcohol in the digital age. The event will be held at TA, and it includes a panel discussion and resource fair. Certainly, dealing with technologies and our teenagers is always a very difficult piece, especially with all the other influences out there. And then finally, just a reminder to all parents and anyone watching, please make sure that you have your updated all of your student information, whether that's on talking points or in others. If you get a new cell phone, new email address, those types of things, because we're not that far away from thinking about winter weather. And we want to make sure that people are well connected to us in getting the announcements. So please do your best to update your information, and if you need any help, please reach out to our schools. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions or comments for Superintendent Ray? Okay, not seeing any. That moves on to item 8, and that is the Chair's report. School Board Chair Preble.
I don't have anything to report this evening. Thank you.
Okay, item number 9, there are no staff reports this evening. Item number 10 is the Board Subcommittee minutes. And the A, Policy and Personnel Committee minutes are attached in your packet. And the next meeting is November 13th at 5:30. Item B is the Finance and Infrastructure Committee agenda. The next meeting is January 27th at 4:30 p.m. And item C is the Curriculum Committee. And the next meeting for that is October 28th at 4:30 p.m. Item 11, there is no old business this evening. Item 12, under new business. Item A is new hires. Is there a motion?
Madam Mayor,
School Board Member Truman?
I move we approve the nomination of Brooke Dunham, Human Resources Manager, and issue a contract for the 2024-25 school year.
Motion has been made by School Board Member Truman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by School Board Member Johnston. Any discussion on the new hires? Okay, not seeing any. Roll call vote. School Board Member Preble?
Yes.
School Board Member Richards?
Yes.
School Board Member Truman?
Yes.
And School Board Member Johnston.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Okay, item B is resignation. With that, there is a memo in your packet, but there is no motion needed this evening. Item number C is the administrative realignment for the new pre-KK and grades 1 through 5 building. And I believe that's Superintendent Ray.
Okay. In your packet is a memo, as we are probably at least 3 years out from the opening of new buildings in Saco. Meg and I, along with some of you as well, and our staff have really started to think about the importance of making sure that people understand what our leadership structure would look like. Also, I think we also have learned how much planning is needed and involvement from administrative staff throughout this process. So we felt that for respecting our staff, thinking about the transition, providing clarity on leadership and proper planning, that we would recommend to you our recommendations for administrative assignments. Our administrative assignments would be at the Saco Elementary School, which is 1 through 5, a recommendation that April Noble is the principal, Jeff Mears, assistant principal, and Tom Partridge, assistant principal. With our Saco Primary School, which will have, and when we think about enrollments, we're thinking about like 1,000 kids and 400 kids-ish in these buildings, with the Saco Primary School having a principal of Wendy LeBlanc and assistant principal of Jamae Walker. The other piece is that we have 5 individuals in this configuration that are very, very competent at what they do. They do a fantastic job. And this also gives them an opportunity, and us an opportunity, to think about the buildings and how each of them will gain an experience through the building process of having input into some of the decision makings, thinking about pieces of a building they may be passionate or or less passionate about, that they can lead up. And we really need to start getting that process moving forward, whether that's around colors and flooring, to playgrounds, to drop-off dismissal, to safety, to all of those pieces. And we have 5 individuals that when you think about building projects of this magnitude, it's not something that a lot of administrators get an opportunity to be part of. So this gives a valuable experience and opportunity for them as well, and we can kind of clearly define our roles moving forward. So I respectfully request that we make a motion tonight to approve and get this one step in the process. And then we need to get to work as a group, because I would like us to think about the next layer of this becomes all staff assignments and how we can give the same notice and planning, hopefully 3 years in advance, of where room assignment, well, not room assignments, but where wing assignments would be and where staff would be, because there will be some juggling throughout, which then allows people that if there's openings over the next couple of years and they prefer to be somewhere else, that we could start that process of getting employees into a place where they would prefer to be.
Okay, great, thank you very much. Any comments or questions for Superintendent Ray regarding?
No, I think we have to do a motion to approve this, yes? I'll take
That's
a,
correct.
I'll
Yep.
take a swing at. I move we approve the leadership assignments as listed in the administrative realignment memo for the new pre-K and K and 1 to 5 schools.
Motion has been made by School Board Member Truman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by School Board Member Johnston. Any discussion or comments on that?
I'd like to add that I think this is a really great plan to give people an idea of like where they'll be in a few years. The few principals that I have talked to since the memo came out, they seem very happy and excited about this, given this, what's the word I'm looking for? Heads up about where things are going to be with the new buildings, and I'm very excited. I hope they are too, so.
Great. Anyone else? School Board Member Johnston?
I think looking ahead this way is absolutely beneficial to the entire organization, to the individual employees, but also to putting our best foot forward with the new construction and the new school. And I appreciate the fact that Superintendent Ray has, and I'm sure other people that he works with, have been thinking along these lines. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, roll call vote. School Board Member Preble?
Yes.
School Board Member Richards?
Yes.
School Board Member Truman?
Yes.
And School Board Member Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0 for the alignment. Okay, and item D now is elementary construction update.
So I'm going to ask Meg to come up. As I had said on Monday night in the joint meeting, that we are in the phase of pulling some people together. We had a wonderful experience that Meg got to be part of having some fifth graders give some input, but over the last 2 weeks, Meg's really been leading up several different meetings, and so it'd be best to hear it coming from her.
So we've had an opportunity to meet with 5 different stakeholder groups. Our most important first end users, the 5th grade class at CK Burns, was able to provide some feedback on playgrounds and also hear a presentation from our landscaped architects, and project managers. We've also met with nurses, office staff, facilities, and nutrition staff to talk about those specific spaces, both the furniture, the use cases, and again, really focusing on not just how do they use their space now and what does that look like on a bigger scale or moving it from 1 room to 2 rooms, but really thinking about how they use the space or how they would want to use that space, what is the use case, and then how can we backwards design from what's best for kids to make that space user-friendly for students and for the community, keeping in mind those folks that are kind of in the kitchens, behind the desks in the offices, and making sure that we're designing the spaces in a way that makes sense for their work and for students that enter those spaces. So it's been a great process so far, and we've been able to collect a lot of feedback, and architects have made a lot of different notations on different plans, moving doors or explaining where different counters or cabinets have to be, And we're also getting a good sense of some more specific stakeholder groups. As we met with our office group, we included the police department, but we'll look to have a separate security team meeting to involve some other folks in that as well. So as we have those meetings, we either know which things are kind of shored up and which things need more additional input as we design the space. And I think we have about 15 more meetings of that nature with different stakeholder groups on the books in the next 2 months or so.
Thank you. Any questions, Meg? Not seeing any. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that now takes us to item E, and that is an enrollment update.
So as you know, we continue to provide that enrollment update for you guys every 2 weeks of where we're at. It looks like on the elementary side, we'll be at 1,944. That is pre-K through 8. We did get our October numbers for Thornton Academy, which is 911, which is up 55 students from the springtime. During that piece, we are looking to, make sure that Jen's working hard, as I said at the joint meeting the other night, with Jen leading that in our office, and Meg and I and others, trying to make sure that we do a thorough job with residency verification to make sure that our tax dollars are going to support Saco students on a tuition charge, because each one who wouldn't be would certainly cost the taxpayers about $15,000 plus. You can see, though, that one of the things that has clearly continued to change in an upward trajectory is that our EL count is now at 242 students, which is a significant increase. We talked last week about adding a couple of ed techs in the realm for ELL to make sure that teachers and students are supported. And as I reported the other night, that our high number of last year at one time was 115 homeless students, and knowing that we have all the varying needs throughout this. And what will happen is we'll continue to verify move-ins, move-outs, and residencies, even though it's an October 1st count that is verified to the state on October 30th. And this is the number that sets us up for subsidy in the upcoming years of making sure those pieces are there. I will tell you that looking at the data a little bit more in depth, which once I get the official count that is uploaded to the state, we kind of get like this screen page that gives you all different types of demographic pieces. You'll get that probably in the next school committee meeting as the printout will talk more, but it appears right now that our free and reduced lunch counts are going to be up probably over 30%, and we're trending where last spring when we were talking about 1 in 4 Saco students being economically disadvantaged, we're more like 1 in 3 now. So I think we're continuing to see the economic pressures that are there in our community. I think one of the pieces that we look at is, as we comb through data, we were combing through some data in the last week when we think about economics, and you look at the fact that like the median home price in York County is over $500,000. Saco, that was like $480,000. The federal poverty guidelines for a family of 4 is like at $31,000. Yet Maine statistics for the entire state of Maine is that a family of 4 to making ends meet is around $99,000 that is needed. So when you're looking at 330% of that federal poverty guideline, we have a challenging situation that our families are dealing with. And so I think we just have to be super cognizant of that issue as we move forward, whether that be from programming to what we're offering for assistance and help within our community. I think our staff in the schools see it every single day.
Great, thank you very much. School Board Member Truman?
As far as the residency issues, trying to verify where people live and everything, my understanding is that it's the superintendent's office that needs to verify all of those, even for TA.
That is correct. Because we are in the SAU, which is the School Administrative Unit, and these are Saco students, it's our job to verify that. So some of the struggles is certainly people come and move in and out, and you usually have a very good idea when someone's moving into your community because they want to register their kid from school. Sometimes what can be more difficult is when people are leaving your community, and unless you have them in a classroom or a teacher knows, or sometimes that can be a challenge, because people want to be in Saco for our schools. And so that outward movement would not be something that we would ever know unless someone reported that to us, or they chose to enroll into another school. So those are the pieces that we're spending some time on now, is just looking at like home sales in the area to make sure that we don't have doubled up addresses or things like that, to try to monitor that the best that we can.
For the people who are, say, moving, does TA not, like, say they find out that that person's not coming to the school, do they let you know?
So I assume that they would. I mean, I don't think we have a lot of those situations where we have that piece of, not because, again, if you're a parent of a high school kid and you really wanted to Thornton, why would you change? Why would you tell anyone? Especially since, for a majority of high school kids, they're probably driving to school or taking or going with family. Whereas if you're talking about a first grader that's been riding the bus and always riding the bus, that's pretty easy for us to be like, oh, you're not a bus rider anymore. Or the bus driver's like, hey, it looks like there's somebody else there. Or you're picking somebody else up at that house, or,
Does TA provide any of the residency, do they collect any of that information for you when the new school year starts? And then provide that to you to show that they've done that?
So one thing TA does is they send all students who are registering for to our office. So if you registered, they would say, hey, you need this. They'll contact Jen, and we'll get a couple of different forms of proof of residency. Certainly leases can be a little bit tougher for us to verify, and we've actually worked really good with codes and city officials to make that piece. But in the amount of sales that there are and movement, it becomes a little bit difficult for us to monitor that. So we're looking at using some of our technologies to help us, whittle down the data and be a little bit more effective in this piece.
So the first step for anybody going to TA is to stop
Correct.
at your door
For a residency verification.
for residency verification, okay. And then the real issue right now is trying to figure out, have any of those students moved since then?
Correct.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? School Board Member Johnston?
Mr. Superintendent, if a student were to leave Thornton Academy, or I guess maybe anywhere else in our district, but wouldn't they want to have the transcripts from TA sent to whatever their new high school might be? But that we would not have access to that information, is that correct?
So if a student left and they had the transcripts, we would get a request in our data system that a kid has moved, or so if a student were to move from Saco and go to Scarborough High School is going to want to claim that student on their student enrollment as well. And so that happens through technology. It's more of like kids all throughout our system that parents, for one reason or another, have a strong attachment. Again, with the housing crunch, there's a lot of families who maybe rely on relatives, grandparents for daycare. And so not wanting to disrupt their child's schooling, sometimes it's, you just wouldn't say anything. And what's hard is that certainly while we would want to have all of these kids in our system, we also have the situation where, if you look at some of our classrooms at Burns School, for example, they're pretty full. And so we have to think about all of those factors that go into that and the resources that we have, and what's best for all kids in that situation. And there's a lot of times when a family moves or is moving in. An example would be if a family came to us in September and said, Mr. Ray, asking for a superintendent's agreement because we purchased a home in Saco and it's been delayed, the building construction's delayed by 8 weeks. What we would do in our office is then say, hey, is there something you can get us from your builder that gives us an estimate? And if a kid's gonna be here on October 20th, we want the kid to start school at the beginning of the year with their students. Or if somebody comes to us in March and says, hey, we've got to move or something's happened, can we please finish out the school year and we're gonna go to the school? Of course, because you wanna do those things. What's difficult is as we get more students or situations like that, we just have to make sure that kids are residents, because we do have situations where you've got 23 kids in the classroom, and we wanna make sure that we're balancing those pieces without. So try to do the right things in right situations, while also, you know, it is my job to watch the expenditures that the citizens here, you know, provide for us each year.
Great. School Board Member Gale?
Just sticking on that Thornton theme, can you talk a little bit about on the multilingual learners piece of it? You know, it looks like right now that there's quite a dip if you just per grade level. And for example, like in 8th grade, right now we've got 19, but then 9th grade's got 9. So next year, like, are we going to see those numbers kind of matriculate up to Thornton, or like, and then how does that impact on terms of the funding formulas?
So what's really hard for us to do is with the population of students who are residents at the hotel, is it's very difficult for us to establish a trend, because people are typically there for 6 months to a year, and then as there's an opening, we tend to get new students at a different grade level with a different family that's moved in. I also think that one of the things I spoke about the other night at City Council that we have to be very mindful of is what does happen in the governor's budget. Does that program continue? Because there's a whole lot of kiddos and families that are living there that could come off our enrollment. And not only would it affect our overall student enrollment in another year, but it would affect our ELL counts, which would send a drastic decrease in subsidy coming from the state. So I think it's been hard for us to find some trends. However, one thing that we do see is that people who are finding housing are doing their best to stay in the area and become, you know, members of our community full-time. And so I think that's been pretty positive. It's just so hard to predict.
Does that ELL funding, like, does Thornton receive, if there is an influx of students, do they receive that funding, or do they have supports for those?
So what we do is, as a school department, is we fund one teaching position at Thornton Academy. So looking at the numbers and comparing to the ratios that we have throughout our district, we would try to align those. That could go up, that could go down, based off the number of students there and based off the ratios that we have throughout the district to try to equalize those services.
But then that teacher, that's our position,
employee.
right? Our employee.
Correct.
Yeah. No, okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, great. Anyone else? Okay, thank you for that update. Okay, that now takes us to item F, and that's a transportation survey, solutions and cost. Superintendent Ray?
Okay, so a couple of weeks ago, we had put out a transportation survey. We had provided you with results, and we had to refine those results a little bit more about things that we felt were doable, what things could be immediately done, what are more like long-term issues. So we know that some of the problems that we have are just around staffing. And we've picked up 2 staffing in the last couple of weeks, and we hope to pick up more, so that's a help. So what does that allow us to do? That allows us to have one person be kind of like a float driver, which means they're going to help out when people call out sick or go out on surgery or some of those things. And we'll have one driver that will come on and will get their own run. What will happen with that is Jeannie would then look at existing runs and runs that are a little bit longer, and we'd start to pull apart some of those challenge areas to try to decrease the loads on those buses or overcrowding to help solve the problem of kids being late to middle school and high school. Timing. We know that we have buses that are 1 to 10 minutes late frequently. We know that the traffic congestion is a challenge for us. And we know our schedules are tight turnaround between the pieces. So we've tried to look at this as immediate action steps versus action steps that need more planning and more research. And we have 4 pieces that we kind of think we would recommend that we do first in conversations with Jeannie and Felicia. One would be looking at purchasing 2 12-passenger vans and looking at the routes that have kind of longer distances with fewer kids. That's kind of a lot of that's your North Saco routes and the routes that tend to be late to school. So if we could peel off some of that distance by using express vans, that would be one thing that we could do to help those families, help those kids, and overall improve the system. Cost of that. Cost of the vans initially up front is the big piece, and then we have open positions, so we'd hire van drivers instead of bus drivers and find that solution. Talked about the new bus drivers and allocating those while continuing to look at hiring more staff to fill more bus driver roles. One of the other pieces is kind of a two-part piece. Is one, we do not have a full-time office kind of secretarial support in transportation, probably the place where there's the most communication. Now that used to be fine when you had not having someone when Jeannie and Felicia could stay there all day long. But most of the time they're out on buses, whether they're being a sub or picking up a route, and we don't pay subs, that having somebody in the office to work on bus-related issues, to focus on bus-related issues, and to really spend some time with route optimization through our TransFinder and getting to know that well. I think what happens is that Jeannie's a master of taking a challenge on in the moment and figuring out the quick solution, but we never have any of that real long-term look at how do we do this, break it apart. How can I use the computer to look at this option versus this option? You know, how do we quickly change something? You know, we're all living a life right now with construction on 112. And I suspect that once that's finished and there's different, we're going to deal with a whole new situation, which will probably happen during school being in session, which everyone will have to adjust to, and then you'll try to figure out over the summer what's really happening until school starts up. So I think we really need to have that piece. And then really looking at the software piece and putting some of the suggestions into play about consolidation of bus stops, having some policy look at those pieces. Those are some more immediate things. Long term, consider implementing express routes in other places using bus. And looking at centralized locations, I think there were some really good ideas that came back in the survey about, okay, what happens if parents went to this drop-off spot that didn't congest things in the city, you loaded a bus, and you were able to go there. I think that's a great suggestion. You just have to then think about, once you're willing to invest the time into that solution, then making sure that that solution is something that people are actually going to utilize. That's a challenging one. looking at alternative transportation options like walking and biking buses. But we have to also build routes for the entire year, not just the warm months. Thinking about a formal carpooling program, what would that look like? Are there any incentives? How do we make sure that people access that and that there's, you know, if Will, Sarah, and Beth are involved in carpooling each kiddos and Will's gone for a vacation for a week, are we sure that Sarah and or Beth can pick up that piece around their work schedule? Because we can't build something and then have great fluctuations in it, because then it will just be, you know, something that's failed. And then once you look at these things, just really making sure that we would survey and get parents to sign up and like, yes, this is something I really want to do. So we would continue on working on some of these pieces. Our recommendation would be to look at the purchase of those 2 vans first and explore that option. And I'd be looking for you guys to make a motion to allow me to purchase those, remembering that, like, finding a 12-passenger van may take several months to implement that solution. But at the end of the day, we know how difficult it is to become a licensed driver for a bus, and if we don't look at having many flexible options, we're just going to continue to do the same thing, because I do not think that 10 bus drivers are like going to walk through our doors magically and say, I'm on it, and everything goes away. Because even with more drivers, parents have routines in place too that are very, for many reasons, you take your kid to school or not, and those are going to be hard things for people to adjust to until they see some of those pieces. So it's where we are on that piece, and, you know, thank everybody for their hard work, and really thank you to parents who, I think for the most part, really took this survey serious and put some thought into those pieces to understand that one thing influences another in transportation, and that it's a big picture item and not just a like, hey, this is what would work for my road.
Thank you. School Board Member Truman.
How many vans are you looking to purchase? 2?
We'd like to start with 2.
And are you looking to have that secretarial support person? Is that something we need to approve as well, or is that something?
Well, I'd like you guys to think about that one. I think it's a need.
I think it's a need for sure. I know Jeannie, if she does answer the phone, it's very
Yeah.
quick and on to the next thing, and she's putting fires out. I don't know how her blood pressure is, but I imagine it's very high. So
Ideally, this needs to happen. And I was told that several years ago, you actually had this position before I was superintendent in your budget, and they never filled it. This is not a position that's in the budget now, and we would need to, again, realistically, we have 7 unfilled bus driver positions, so essentially you're just using the money from one of those to do some of those pieces. And I know that everybody here would say, wouldn't it be great if we could also convince that person to get their CDL? And I'm going to say no. And the reason, because we will work against ourselves and be forced to put that person on a road when we really need to have someone dedicated to answering the phone, working with families, allowing Felicia and Jeannie to do their jobs, and to spend the time that we need on some of the routing software to do a better job.
I mean, I'm sold on the administrative piece too, so. You don't need a motion on that one, or do you? Yes.
I would take a motion
Okay.
on all of the recommendations.
Okay.
And we would start getting to work
Okay.
on those items.
Okay, perfect. So, can I jump into it? Does anybody else have?
Absolutely, go
Okay.
for it.
I move we approve the purchase of 2 vans for the Transportation Department.
Okay, motion has been made by School Board Member Truman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by School Board Member Richards. Any additional discussion or comments? Okay, not seeing any. Roll call vote. School Board Member Preble.
Yes.
School Board Member Richards.
Yes.
School Board Member Gale.
Yes.
School Board Member Truman.
Yes.
And School Board Member Johnston.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
One more, can I just make a motion to approve the hiring of an office clerical staff member to assist with the transportation department?
Second.
Motion has been made by School Board Member Truman, second by School Board Member Preble. Do you need an effective date on that motion? Okay, roll call vote. School Board Member Preble.
Yes.
School Board Member Richards.
Yes.
School Board Member Gale.
Yes.
School Board Member Truman.
Yes.
And School Board Member Johnston.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Okay, moving on to item G this evening. Yes, School Board
Sorry,
Member Gale.
just one other, when we're looking at, in the future, for the future action items, just on the, looking at that piece about centralized locations for pickups, it'd probably be helpful to coordinate also with like the Traffic Safety Committee, with police, just to get a holistic view of things as well, to hopefully make things as smooth as possible as we select these.
Yeah, I think we'd also.
Great
want-
idea.
I think we'd also probably like public works too, just like the plowing piece. Those are important ones to think about where you placed, like, not only would you possibly be creating new stops, but you might also be creating new challenges for like public works and those pieces, so yeah.
Okay, great. School Board Member Truman?
Do you need a motion on anything else, or should we have just done a blanket motion to let you explore all options on this memo? I just want to make sure I'm covering all my bases here.
I think we've covered it for now on the big ones.
Okay.
I know that Meg's going to be looking at, policy will be the next piece of reviewing that transportation policy. And then continuing to try to refine things. And again, maybe the solution really helps things quick and you say, hey, we need to go more in that direction. And what's the next steps, and take it piece by piece.
Okay, I just want to make sure we weren't leaving you hanging and you left and you weren't like, oh, I can't do anything now, so, thanks.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, moving on to item G, that's the first reading of policies. Is there a motion? School Board Member Johnston?
Thank you. I move we approve the first reading of policies JICE, student publications, JICIA, weapons, violence, and school safety, JK, student discipline, JKAA, use of physical restraint and seclusion, JKAA-R, procedures on physical restraint and seclusion, and JKD, suspension of students. And also to strike JICE-R, student publications procedures, and JJIA-E1, JJIAA-E2, JJIAA-E3, JJIAA-E4.
Second.
Motion has been made by School Board Member Johnston, second by School Board Member Truman. Any discussion on the policies? School Board Member Johnston?
I just wanted to say that the policies that we are suggesting to strike are those that are either just deemed inappropriate to be in the policy book. Some of them are actually more like applications for certain involvement with co-curricular or extracurricular activities by private school students. And the publications procedure we already have covered with a different new policy.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, roll call vote. School Board Member Warnoff?
Yes?
School Board Member Preble?
Yes.
School Board Member Richards?
Yes.
School Board Member Gale?
Yes.
School Board Member Truman?
Yes.
And School Board Member Johnston.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. And for the record, would like to note that School Board Member Caroline Warnoff did arrive, so now we have the 6 voting members this evening. Okay, item H is the second reading of policies to strike. Is there a motion?
Madam
School
Mayor?
Board Member Johnston?
I'm sorry, just for clarification, did you say that this was H?
Yes.
Okay, it became H, never mind.
Item H.
Sarah's clarifying for me. Okay. I move we strike policy CBI-R, which is the Administrator ISLIC standards, which is becoming an internal document instead of a policy.
Second?
Motion has been made by School Board Member Johnston, second by School Board Member Truman. Any discussion on that policy? Okay, not seeing any. School Board Member Warnoff?
Yes.
School Board Member Preble?
Yes.
School Board Member Richards?
Yes.
School Board Member Gale?
Yes.
School Board Member Truman?
Yes.
And School Board Member Johnston.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Okay, that now takes us to item 13, and that is other information this evening. There is nothing listed, but I would like to add 2 points to note. For the school board members who were not present at Monday's meeting, it was mentioned that recently the school board, the committee, the city council approved $5,000 to go into the ASK program. So from the city council, we will be putting in $5,000 to help get that fund started for the Saco kids. And on
I-
a second note,
Can I add one more thing?
Yes.
I hadn't mentioned it earlier. Saturday, I participated in the school board delegation conference, and all the resolutions that they had put forward had all passed, with some of them with a lot of work, but they'd all passed. So I figured I'd just pass that along.
good, thank you for that information as well. And then also, some exciting news going forward. Thanks to the Biddeford Saco Rotary Group and generous donations from sponsors and auctions, we are holding a groundbreaking on Tuesday for the much-anticipated and new splash pad that will be located at the community center on Franklin Street. The anticipated opening date is May 15th, 2025. So construction is going to start, and this is going to be a great opportunity to provide kids of all ages and abilities a fun, safe place to go for families. So we are having the groundbreaking, and if anybody is interested in more information, Brenda from the Biddeford Saco Rotary is going to be giving the council a presentation on Monday night at 6:30.
When is the groundbreaking?
Tuesday afternoon
Tuesday
at 2. And you are all invited if anybody would like to. Well, yep, but Brenda will be doing a slideshow presentation and giving all of the ins and outs and the important information on it on Monday night. Okay, anyone else with some information or updates? Okay, so that now takes us to item 14, and there is no executive session this evening. And item 15 is adjournment. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Motion to adjourn by School Board Member Richards, second by School Board Member Truman. Roll call vote, School Board Member Warnoff,
Yes.
School Board Member Preble,
Yes.
School Board Member Richards.
Yes.
School Board Member Gale,
Yes.
School Board Member Truman,
Yes.
and School Board Member Johnston.
Yes.
Motion to adjourn at 5:50 passes 6-0. And thank you, everyone, and have a great evening.